I want to begin this morning by acknowledging yet again what a difficult year it has been for many, and acknowledge the contribution of IDA colleagues, the performance of our client companies, and the support of government. I also want to specifically acknowledge that it has been a difficult year for many businesses, particularly in the domestically trading sectors of the economy, and those challenges remain. And I want to thank all of the multinational companies that we work with for what they have contributed to Ireland over the past 2 years, and congratulate them on how they have responded, pivoted, and worked through what has been a very difficult year for everyone. I want to thank companies and their employees for following public health advice, and I want to particularly acknowledge those in manufacturing that have had to continue to go to their workplaces over the last 2 years and maintain supply chains of often critical products and services. Let me now take you through the performance of FDI in 2021. This graph shows the staircase growth in FDI employment over the past decade. This growth is linked to successful IDA strategies for attracting and growing FDI. The numbers now employed directly in FDI companies stands at over 275,000. That represents a net growth of just under 100,000 people employed directly in FDI companies since 2014. Total direct and indirect employment now stands at over 495,000. When we delve underneath these figures, the first thing to note is the resilience and performance of FDI companies over the past year has been nothing short of astonishing. FDI companies in 2021 have recorded the highest gross gains ever in IDA's history at over 29,000, and also the highest net gains at close to 17,000. Job losses this year as a percentage of the overall portfolio remained at a modest level. FDI has contributed significantly to the recovery in employment in the overall economy in the past year. Direct FDI employment now accounts for 11% of all those employed in the economy. The performance of FDI in Ireland is all the more impressive given the negative global economic impacts of the pandemic. This slide shows the job creation and losses over the past 15 years. The green bar is the gross job gains, the aqua at the bottom are the job losses, and the blue in the centre shows net gains. We can see that FDI employment in the past 2 years has been much more resilient than during the global financial crisis. And even then, FDI was more resilient and bounced back more quickly than the rest of the economy. While we saw a lower level of new jobs created in 2020 during the height of the pandemic than we have seen in recent years, the 2021 results show that it was merely a delay and the upward investment trajectory continues. Looking back at 07, 08 and 09, we are reminded that these figures can go both ways. Over the past year, there were 249 investments approved. This compares to 246 in 2020. These figures demonstrate both IDA's and our clients' ability to pivot to the virtual world. Undoubtedly, Ireland and IDA have benefited during this period from strong pre-existing relationships with our existing investors, but we have also shown that we can win investment in a virtual world. We always want to see companies investing for the first time, as that is the future seed stock of growth. In 2021, 105 companies, a very high number, invested for the first time. We also want to see existing companies expand, and we want to see companies investing in research and development. And we saw 43 companies do that in 2021. This makes the companies stronger and stickier from an Ireland perspective. Crucially, 133 or 53% of investments were in regional locations outside of Dublin. Where do the investments come from? Well, the largest number of investments again this year came from North America, 160, down just slightly on the previous year. 68 came from Europe, well up on the previous year, and 21 came from growth markets, Asia-Pac being the predominant source there, slightly down on the previous year. As you will see from the slide here, employment gains are across the board, with technology, business services and life sciences heavily contributing. Traditional manufacturing also showing a modest increase. IDA's strategy in recent years has focused on the key sectors that underpin a modern economy. Our work with existing client companies on transformation, digitalisation, R&D, training and upskilling, and on Industry 4.0 has led to the resilience that we have seen in the FDI sector and the protection of employment. That work with existing clients is every bit as important as winning new name investments. Securing regional investments, as we all know, is a key objective for IDA, and we have seen significant progress since 2015. Securing regional investments remains very challenging, not least because it runs against the global flow towards urban areas. As you can see, employment in all regions increased over the past year, with significant percentage increases in the Midlands and the South East. There are now 45,000 more people employed on the ground in regional locations today than there were in 2015. IDA is committed to continuing to win investments in regional locations in line with the National Planning Framework, and it is a key pillar of our new strategy. Key to supporting our regional strategy is our property investment programme, which sees IDA invest in strategic sites and advanced buildings to allow investors to have turnkey solutions. IDA will deliver 19 advanced building solutions to regional locations over the course of our new strategy. We are currently completing construction of advanced buildings in Monaghan and Sligo. IDA has also 4 other buildings under construction in Limerick, Dundalk, Athlone and Carlow. 2 properties are due to commence construction in the first quarter of 2022 in Waterford and Athlone. The remainder of the buildings on the IDA programme for Tralee, Drogheda, Letterkenny, Mullingar, Longford, Galway, Sligo, Castlebar and Cavan are all at various stages of site selection, design or in the planning process, and will commence following completion of those processes. On this slide, you will see some of the announcements over the past year. I would remind you that only a fraction of our clients announced their investments. There are some great examples here. Accenture in Cork and Dublin, Fiserv in Tipperary, Intel continuing to invest in Kildare, State Street expanding in Kilkenny, Zoetis in Offaly, Charles River in Mayo, CETA in Donegal. I have here the contribution of FDI to the economy in 2020. These figures are from the forthcoming annual business and employment survey undertaken by our parent department, the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment. What it shows is that overall expenditure by multinationals increased by over €27 billion in the midst of the pandemic in 2020. The payroll expenditure of multinationals expanded by 11%. Their expenditure on Irish materials and services also expanded by 6%. And we can see the capital expenditure expanded and now stands at €7.5 billion. Exports from multinationals account for over €290 billion, an increase of 9% year on year. We also know separately from the national accounts that FDI continued to make significant contributions to the Exchequer in terms of corporate tax, and that income tax from this source remained resilient during 2020 and indeed in 2021. This strong contribution from multinationals in 2020 was even more important in the context of the challenges faced elsewhere in the economy. The global outlook for FDI in 2022 remains uncertain, linked in particular to the uncertain path of the virus. The OECD and the UN data shows a bounce back in FDI in 2021, but uncertainty remaining as to the outlook for 2022. What we have seen is that FDI in Ireland and into Ireland has been more resilient than we may have expected 18 to 24 months ago. Ireland's high level of vaccination has attracted favourable comment from investors and provides reassurance around business resiliency. But we know that this pandemic continually presents new challenges, new variants, and we also know that the level of vaccination and the approach to suppressing the virus varies considerably across the globe. So it is likely that to be a feature impacting on FDI for some time to come. As predicted this time last year, 2021 has been an important year for tax in terms of the consensus that developed at a global level on how best to tackle challenges of base erosion and profit shifting, and the challenges that emanate from a digitalised economy. Ireland, as you're aware, is now inside that deal, and the technical detail continues to be worked through. That deal will see the global minimum tax rate for companies with revenues of over 750 million taxed at 15%, and all remaining companies in Ireland, the vast majority, taxed at 12.5%. This will impact a significant portion of IDA client companies. Based on the feedback that I have received from client companies, We do not see this change significantly impacting on FDI flows. Having a global framework and the stability it provides is preferable to uncertainty and unilateral actions by individual countries. Competitiveness remains key, and we urge government to continue to ensure in all its actions that it keeps in mind that we are competing for investment in a very competitive international environment. We cannot rest on our laurels and take investment for granted. We can only continue to win investment at the level we are winning it if we address carrying capacity issues within the economy, including housing and utilities like water, wastewater and energy, and also delays associated with the planning system. COVID has hastened the advance of technological disruption. That is why IDA will focus heavily on digitalisation and Industry 4.0 in its new strategy, and why we will launch the Advanced Manufacturing Centre in Limerick in 2022. Aside from the spread of the COVID-19 variants of concern and the varying levels of vaccination rates across countries, IDEA is also cognizant of international issues, including the future trajectory of monetary and fiscal policies, should current inflationary pressures last longer than expected over the course of 2022, supply chain issues, decarbonisation, and geopolitical developments that will potentially impact on investors' decision-making. The pandemic has highlighted the fault lines in global supply chains. Some of these issues are short-term and linked to the pandemic impacts. Some are more structural and may lead to adjustments on how companies set up their global value chains. The pandemic has increased nationalistic and protectionist tendencies globally. Increased protectionism is a negative development for a country as globalised as Ireland, and that depends on trade and investment. Those countries and companies that attract, retain and grow talent will be successful. We also need to be nimble, flexible and responsive as we gain an understanding of the future of work. We are now 1 year into our new strategy, Driving Recovery and Sustainable Growth, a 4-year strategy that will run from 2021 to 2024. Just to remind you, our full strategy is available at idaireland.com. IDA made progress across our strategic pillars of growth, transformation, regions, sustainability and impact in 2021. We have set clear targets under each pillar. Throughout the year, IDA continued to partner with companies to create jobs, locate in regions and invest in R&D. We also began the process of implementing our new focus area on training and upskilling investment by multinationals in Ireland under the transformation pillar, and our renewed emphasis on environmental sustainability related investments under the sustainability pillar. IDA has established dedicated teams to deliver on these strategic objectives. And finally, it is through our clients that all of this happens. Without them, IDA could do nothing. I want to take the opportunity to thank you all for all that you do in partnership with IDA on an ongoing basis. Thank you for your continued confidence and investment in Ireland.